What's up, everyone? We're back.
Dr. Maxfield.
Dr. Shad. Welcome back to our channel, Doctorly, where we talk about all things skincare and dermatology. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most horrible things we've seen online this year. But we're going to be talking about home mole removal and just mole removal in general. So some of the horrible things that we've seen on social media have to do with people trying to remove their own moles at home. But I think it's a concern that people have. They have moles that they've had for a long time and they want to remove them. So the question is, how do you remove a mole in general? And we're going to talk about what not to do.
So mole removal, here we go.
Here we go.
So we can watch a little video to exemplify some of the things we see on social media here.
Removal using fibroblast plasma therapy. The plasma pen is held above the skin and does not touch it during the procedure. It generates plasma energy, which penetrates the skin's outer layer, causing the mole to come off. Just like magic.
So it worked, right? So the mole appears gone. So essentially using energy to destroy a lesion is not new. We do this all the time in dermatology, especially with benign appearing lesions. So I understand that people have moles that they want to remove, but the question is, how do you do this safely? And one of my biggest issues with home mole removals in general is that they have one of two issues. So one issue is that if you're removing a mole at home, you're often using something that's not safe to use on the skin. It's not only going to remove the mole, but oftentimes damage the surrounding tissue. So if you're using like an acid that removes wart on a mole, it's going to damage it. I've seen people try to use tea tree oil to remove it. I've seen people have their barbers try to remove their moles. So one thing is you're probably going to cause damage to the surrounding tissue. And the second issue that I have with these is that you don't know what you're removing a lot of times. So even sometimes you come to us and we don't even know, and that's why we biopsy them, right? So it could be a skin tag, could be a benign nevus, but it could also be a skin cancer. And by removing that top surface of the skin cancer, you could have the roots continue to spread deep and then spread all over the body. So you definitely don't want to do that.
Exactly. So just like Dr. Shaw mentioned, you may think you've treated this. And even in the video, you're like, oh, it would be like a successful result with the naked eye. And I understand that because what looked like a mole is now gone. It looks most like normal appearing skin. But what was under the skin is just whatever used to be on top. And sometimes it is a skin cancer. And then when it does represent, it can represent aggressively or like very advanced. And that's what we really, really want to avoid, in addition to avoiding the scarring, which like we see in the study here, that does happen when people use some of either these home hacks or other things they find to try to remove moles at home.
Yeah, and this is another PSA here. If you have like a mole that you know is not quite right, and all of your friends and family, maybe your wife, maybe your husband is telling you like, you should probably get that checked out. If you're watching this video, this is your sign to go get that checked out, because a lot of times there is been that funny mole that you've had a suspicion about that you should have checked out. And a lot of times when that story comes into our office, it ends up being a melanoma. So I would definitely just, if you're watching this video, consider having your moles checked out.
Yeah, real world stories, all of that. Like very, not like common, but consistently. I can remember multiple instances where someone's spouse asked them or prompted them to come in and it was actually melanoma, and they actually literally saved their spouse's life. So not saying that every lesion is going to be like a bad melanoma, but it is worth getting confirmatory answers sometimes. So then the question is, do not occlude your moles with acid at home. Do not treat them without having a biopsy and knowing exactly what you're being treated, or having someone at least examine it, a dermatologist to examine it or use dermoscopy with it. But then how do we go about removing a mole safely? What's the best way to get that done?
So you come to our office, you have a mole that's suspicious to you, or maybe it's a mole you just don't like. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to evaluate your surrounding skin. We're going to say, is this mole like all the other moles that this person has, and we call that their signature mole, or is this something that's like abnormal for them? Because that's really important. So we're going to be doing like a full 360 diagnosis of you. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull out our handy dandy dermatoscope, some people call it, and we're going to look, and this has 10x magnification, and we're going to look at the features. Oh, he has it in his bag. So dermatoscope, we're going to look at the features of this. We're going to look at that pigment network to make sure that it's a benign appearing pigment network. Now, once we've made that diagnosis that it's a benign appearing mole or maybe something else, we usually will numb it with some liquid nitrogen, We will numb it with some lidocaine, and then we will scrape it flat with a blade. And then we'll send that off to the lab, and then we'll do a little cautery or electrofulguration to stop the bleeding.
So even when you get to the point where you're seeing the dermatologist, you show them your pigmented lesion, our minds go two ways. We see the pigment through our dermatoscope. This is a mole or melanocytic nevus, or this is like a pigmented skin cancer, or this is a very benign seborrheic keratosis or benign other pigmented lesion. So we already split it clinically into three different directions, or maybe a gray area. And then if it falls into anything other than, yes, this is absolutely benign, we take a biopsy, we confirm the diagnosis, and then we use varying techniques after we've taken the biopsy to help it be flush with the skin, to make sure it won't recur, fix the contour pigment. So there are a lot of subtleties in there as well to try to blend it and make it appear as healthy and heal like normal skin. But all of that happens when we confirm this is a benign mole or not.
You definitely need to make sure the lesion is benign. Now, that being said, if you have like a beauty mark or a mole that you want to have removed, bear in mind that mole, you could be exchanging it for a scar. And there is no way, if you ever see somebody who tells you that you will have no scar, they are not telling you the truth. Flat out, there is no way to predict. Once we enter the skin with anything, once we make any incision, there is no way to guarantee that you won't have a scar. Now, we'll do everything in our power. I always tell people, like, I'm going to do my part to make the scar look as good as possible because we are trained to make it look as good as possible. You're going to do your part by taking care of it at home. You're going to use, Vaseline to keep the wound moist. You're going to use a scar gel afterwards that has silicone in it to make sure that it heals the best. But even though those two things are done correctly, there's always the third factor, which is your own wound healing process that occurs. That can turn into a keloid, that can turn into a hypopigmented scar, it can become an indented scar. So when you come to remove a beauty mark, just bear in mind you could be trading that for a scar. So add that to the list of things not to do. But we do definitely have if you have something you haven't liked for many, many years and you want it gone, I do suggest seeing your dermatologist to have it removed. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video.
All right, we'll see you next time.